vibe. Come let we lime, come let we vibe. Lime vibe. Oh, lime vibe.
So, welcome to another Line Vibe podcast. I'm with your host, Yori Camp, and I'm here with my guest, Mr. Kwame McPherson,
Yeah.
author and storyteller and a world traveler. And and what else are you, Kwame? You're everything under the book, under the sun, aren't you?
Apparently.
So, Kwame, how's things over there in Jamaica, man? You're from Jamaica, right?
Yeah, man. I grew up in Jamaica. Yeah, man. Everything's great, man. Jamaica's beautiful as always. It's home. It's has its issues, but I'm not gonna complain. Life is good.
Nah, gotcha. So, tell me a bit about yourself, Kwame.
Hmm. A bit about myself. Let's say start at the beginning. I guess I was born in the UK. Came to Jamaica when I was very young. Lived in Jamaica for most of my years. Actually, went back to the UK to finish off university. Ended up working, but the opportunity was I was able to travel, which which I'm very very grateful for. So I was able to live in other countries, been in North America, and along the way I was able to discover writing discovered me, I should say.
Okay.
And even though I've done the university route and worked formally in organizations and stuff like that, yeah, I've ended up coming to writing has found me, and I'm now being able to continue doing writing, and all that's in a nutshell. There's a lot more.
So you were born in the UK?
Yeah, I was born in the UK.
I wasn't aware. I thought you were Jamaican. You moved over there. Okay.
No, I was born in the UK, but I came to Jamaica when I was very young, when I was about.
Okay. How do you compare both sides? How do you compare the UK to the Jamaica?
There's no comparison, really. To me, there's no comparison. The UK. One thing I've realized in terms of through my travels and being in the African diaspora, that's what I call it that, is that the UK has been very good at marketing itself to be a place where people need to be. Well, I would say that for a lot of the West actually, and we, those of us from the Caribbean, I mean from the motherland, from Africa itself, see these places as the epitome of good living and all that kind of stuff. But when you get there and when you live there, to me it's a different scenario. Not saying that one can't succeed in regards to whatever they want to do in environments, but for me personally, it was never home. And I would never call it home. It just happened I was born there, So for me, there's no comparison. There's an element of freedom. These places may portray themselves to be free, but to me, they're not free. You're more enclosed, and that's whether you live in a house or whether it's the weather or the people. There's an element of freedom for me. So being in the Caribbean, and even when I've been to Africa and stuff like that, you're free here. And you are with this perception of freedom, which you're not. So that's the difference. That's the difference for me in the basics of it. But in terms of the standard of living, quality of living is also an element. The quality of living in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, where I am at, is much higher.
In what way, shape, and form?
And the quality, and it's not, like I said, not in terms of quantity, the quality. So, for example, I can get fresh food if I just go to a market. In the UK, you don't get fresh food. You get food that has been stored for a little while, which has to then be, allowed for it to mature, so to speak. So, for example, I can jump in a bus and head to the country, find a beach, and I can chill on the beach, relax, and allow the stresses to go. You can't do that in the UK, for example. And if it could, the weather does not allow for it to be as amenable as it is in the Caribbean.
It's always sad and rainy, isn't it?
Exactly. So, and the stresses, even though there's the stresses in the Caribbean, the difference is you feel you can't deal with those stresses. Whereas in the UK, you have the stresses and some, which will come in terms of institutionalized racism, and you feel like you're fighting every day. And so for me, there's no comparison. There's no comparison. I've been like I said, I've been fortunate enough to have traveled and see and have the ability to compare and realize what really mattered in life. And funny enough, even prior to COVID happening and taking that time out of people's lives, a lot of people started to reassess their own lives and understand that their priority is not what they thought it was, and are looking to make themselves home in the Caribbean or Africa.
So tell me about the racism you experienced in the UK, though.
Yeah, man, it's you see, like I said, the perception is that, and even if you went, because like I said, I lived in North America, I lived in Canada, and the perception is we of those of us from in African countries, and when I say African, I include the Caribbean in that, we have this thing that the West is best, right?
Yeah.
And for many of us, without understanding the history of the West in regards to all the treatment of Black people in particular. So you find that, so for example, organizations and institutions which have been covertly and overtly involved in the enslavement of our ancestors still exist. Nothing has changed. But we are under the perception that things have changed because of the way it seems. Now, I've experienced it to in such a way that I come away realizing that it's not, and nothing has changed. These are the same institutions that have been there for hundreds of years. These are the same institutions which will continue to perpetuate what they've perpetuated. It has become more sophisticated in regards to how they treat us, but it still exists. And I personally living in that particular environment, I was a shop steward, trade union shop steward. I was a chairperson for the Black Worker Support Group in a particular organization, and I saw it for what it was, and it hasn't changed. So for me, I couldn't, being in that environment, it wasn't home, and having to fight that every single day. I said, no, man, struggle. I said, no. So yeah. But like I said, for anyone who goes into those environments, and have made a success of it, with like our forebears have in regards to the Windrush generation, for example, I give them more credit. But I just think that, it's painful.
So while it's not blatant, you know exactly where you stand over there, and that's what you're trying to say. Actually.
It is. You know where you stand. You know who you are. But like I said, man, you're reminded of that. You are reminded of that every single day. I had enough of that, man.
So how was the transition coming back to the Jamaica now? Because I can imagine people were looking at you as kind of uppity, right?
No. Remember, I grew up here. So for me, it was the transition, no problem. I've always been here, basically. When I left, when I was a young man, actually. I didn't leave when I was a teenager. I left when I was a young man. So I had been working. I was going to school here, had my peer group here. So I was always back and forth. So I had no issue. I haven't had an issue coming back because I know Jamaica. I know Jamaica more so than somebody who's been away for a while, for example. But I've always been here. So for me, the transition hasn't been a problem at all. It hasn't been an issue.
Okay, that's cool. So you said you're a writer. How did you get into writing, though, Kwame? I mean, how did you get into writing? What inspired you to become a writer?
Oh wow! Well, the thing is, and I guess you probably know this too. Growing up in the Caribbean, growing up in Jamaica, one of the things we learned at primary school is to write essays and compositions and poetry and all that kind of stuff. Going through high school, I didn't do any of that. Funny enough, I went through high school and it didn't. At the time, creativity wasn't as it is now. It wasn't looked upon as an area of somebody can create something from because of the time. You know what I mean? Technology has changed that. So after leaving high school, and like I said, I went back to the UK to complete my studies because I couldn't afford to complete studies here, funny enough. So I said, all right, let me go back to the UK, which I did. And because at the time, if you're a UK citizen, you were able to get grants to take you to college and university, so on and so forth. So I was able to get employment, and whilst I was being employed, I was going to college and college and then university. It so happens that one day I think somebody had said to me, and when I was working in the government, I was working as a civil servant, and somebody had said to me if I'd something to do with poetry, and I wrote them a personalized poem because I think they wanted to give up a gift to someone. And, do you know what? I said, let me try, and I did a personalized poem for them to give their loved one. And when that person got it, other people heard and said, could you have one? And then I ended up being in the civil service newsletter. Now, at the time, I didn't realize that, you know what I mean, it was going to be a journey. I was just writing poetry because I started writing poetry. And then I said, somebody said, you're good at this, you should enter competitions. And so I did. And I became runners up in a competition back in the day. And then I said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to continue doing this as a hobby. I didn't think I was doing it as a career, as a business. So in the end, I continued writing. I said, all right, let me move on to longer pieces. So I started to write stories and short stories, and people enjoyed them, and that's how it happened. That's how it actually moved. That's how the transition was.
But you've won awards, haven't you, though, Kwame?
Huh?
You've won awards, though, haven't you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I won awards. Even from when I was writing poetry, I won awards. That's what I mean. But like I said, it wasn't something that I had planned. It was something that happened. It found me rather than me finding it. And yeah, in the end, like I said, I just continued writing. And when I went to move to North America for a little while, I did my first book, and that was poems that I had actually written back in a decade before. And from that first book I wrote, then everything else rolled along. It's just momentum built, and I wrote more books, and started helping other people to write and all that kind of thing. So writing, I've been doing it for quite a while, and up to now, I can say that I've won, quite a number of awards, and I'm pretty proud of that.
So what inspires you then? What's your muse? What gets you going? Is it scenery? Is it music? Is it a particular friend of yours? Particular cause? What's your muse? What inspires you?
Our story. And when I say our story, I said our story is African people. And I mean, when I say our story is African people, I mean the African diaspora. So that's what inspires me. History inspires me. And what we're going through and what we have been through, other people inspires me. I think a lot of the stories from my travels and from my journeys, there's a lot of stories that happen locally. But in terms of the diaspora and the transition of those stories from one region to the next, it virtually doesn't exist. And so I try to create pieces that reflect reflect the journey, as well as reflect the relationship between different regions or different areas of the diaspora. So that's what inspires me: history and our story and African diaspora, and the richness of what exists within the African diaspora.
Why do you think we don't take our story more seriously, though, Kwame? I mean, why are we missing this huge gap in storytelling and in recording our history? Why is that? And every other culture does it, but we don't particularly like to do it.
Yeah, well, I would say that's changing. Technology has changed that. Technology and it's continuing to change, because I think that what we haven't been good at doing, though, is letting others know about those stories. So, for example, I may write a piece about Jamaica, for example, and then it's a matter of letting other people in different countries know about that piece that I've written. So I think we're getting better at it, to tell you the truth, because Facebook, for example, has a number of Black groups that are global writing groups, that are Black authors that are global. I personally have been involved with a massive piece out of California, out of Los Angeles, an anthology of Black men. So it is changing in regards to us participating in various parts of the African diaspora, as well as telling those stories from those areas. So it is changing, and technology has enabled that, actually. So I would say it's a wonderful thing. It is a wonderful thing.
Okay, it's changing for the good, I hope, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It cannot be good, because, like I said, I'm a part of a project called The Heart of a Black Man from out of Los Angeles, as I'm the only Caribbean man in it. So
wow.
So that goes to show that I have a presence in a book that's in Los Angeles, right?
Yes.
So that's what I'm talking about. That's that kind of cross relationship.
Thank you for representing, man, Kwame. Thank you for representing. But you have a passion for helping men, though, right? You've written about depression and men in particular. So tell me a bit about that. How do you write about depression in young men and men in particular?
Okay, well, it's based on my own experience, right? One of the things I realized as a writer, and prior to me writing my last book, My Day to Depression, I had written a lot around fictional stuff. I'd written a lot of fictional stuff. In one of my previous short story books, I had written a personal story, which actually went on to win a prize. But I had never actually delved deep into a personal story. So I said, you know what? So whilst I was living in Canada, I was going through a state of depression, and I said, let me, after that episode, actually, is on reflection about that episode that I went through, that I decided to write about it. And write about experiences that I had with whilst I was going through that time. So it just so happened that when I wrote the content, wrote the manuscript, I lost it, and then it so happened that I had lost it because the USB that I had on the stick got corrupted, and it only so happened that when I was checking a friend of mine on Facebook, I realized I sent it to him for him to read, and that was how I was able to get it back. I think I was able to get it back, or revive it. And when I saw that, I realized, I think that was 2015. I realized that there's probably a message in this for me to get this content out. So that's how that book came out. It came out on the back of me finding it again. So there was something there in terms of the movements of the universe and so on and so forth. And then it just said get it out. And when I started to get it out and start talking about my journey, that's when I started to realize that men in the whole, I mean black men in particular, we struggle with personal challenges.
Yes.
And we don't talk about them. And that's when I started talking about my book, that a lot of men started to approach me and started to ask me and started to want to write their own story and so on and so forth. So that's how it evolved. It basically evolved on the back of me writing a book about my own experience.
And it's men in general, right? Not just African men or Caribbean men, men in general.
Men in general. But I tend to, but our story has a extra layer because of what we've been through, other people, via the enslavement of our ancestors, which has carried on through us to this day. So we struggle a lot more than other people do in that regard. So that's why I emphasize in regards to black men in particular, and African Caribbean men and African American men in the main, because the transition of our ancestors via the Atlantic to the Americas affected us in that main. So there's a lot of attachment and connection to what they went through and why we go through what we go through today.
Do you think it's getting worse now? Because I've been watching the news a lot, and there's been a lot of focus now on men in particular who feel like they're being disenfranchised, particularly in America, with young white males, right? Do you think that the time has changed where it's becoming more prevalent now, where a lot of young men in particular are more depressed in this generation than they were in the generation before? Or you think it's just something that really happens and no one really has talked about, and now they're just starting to focus on now?
Exactly. What happens today was no different 5 years ago, 50 years ago, 500 years ago. What's happening today has always happened. The difference is that exactly what you just said. We now have the ability to understand and to the stories to be known quite more than they were before. That's all the difference. So and the technology enables that. You know, I mean, technology moves the information around in seconds rather than back in the day of the telegram that took months. So that has created an exposure of like you said, exactly what men are going through today. And it has been enabled by technology. So it's I would go far as to say it was no different than before. Just that we have technology which enables us to know more. You know what I mean?
Okay. You think it's a chemical imbalance, or do you think it's a chemical imbalance, or do you think it's like more social pressures?
I think it's a lot. There's a lot that causes men to have being particular to face different challenges. It's the expectations of what men are supposed to be. It's those societal pressures, and how a man is supposed to quote unquote perform. Also, you know what I mean? So society in itself today doesn't allow for men to be weak. You know what I mean? And that's been for quite some time. So even though men we do and can be weak, we're not supposed to be weak because the way of how society has created the entire image of what a man should look like. Right?
Indeed.
So that's so I wouldn't say it's an imbalance or anything. I think, like I said before, we now know of it. We now can put something, and it's almost like, so for example, throughout the years, men go to war. You know what I mean? At one stage, when a man goes to war and come back from war, there's something mentally unstable about him because he had shell shock. You know what I mean? So throughout the years and through the times a man has gone somewhere else, they always had a label for it. Now it's PTSD, right? Post-traumatic syndrome, right? So that's what they call it today. So the same thing with what we go through in particular, like I said, in terms of depression and anxiety, or any other stresses that we may have. It's just that we know I recognize it for what it is.
Yes.
Rather than what it was before. You know what I mean?
And there are varying degrees, isn't it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So there are varying degrees. So because you can have from one extreme to the next. Somebody could be, I don't know, locked up in a room and he doesn't want to talk to anyone, and that's fine. They have to get himself out. But then you have the other extremes where someone may take their own life, or they have to go and be on medication. So it has varying degrees in regards to how it allays someone, and how it can affect in that regard. I would say, like I said, it's just that we now can recognize it for what it is, which we didn't before.
Because even now, with myself, I believe I was in the 10-year depression. I just came out about 2 years ago. 10 years, I was just depressed. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't make any progress.
Yeah.
I couldn't get a job, couldn't keep a job, couldn't find nothing, couldn't find work, couldn't find a suitable mate. Nothing was
Yeah.
going right in my life, man. And I just kept feeling down and down and down. And all of a sudden, it just snapped one day, and
Yeah.
things changed. You know,
Yeah.
I stumbled into my neighbor's church, and I was uplifted. And all of a sudden, things started to change. Things started to look up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that upliftment was a way of, how can you call it? It's almost like you had to have that point of reflection. You had to see where you were at.
Yes.
You had to see where you were coming from. You had to try to put sense or make sense of the experiences that you were going through.
Yes.
So you had a period of what I would say you had to take stock of yourself.
Yes.
And then reevaluate and say, you know what is it that I want, and then you move forward. So I fully appreciate that, understand that.
Yeah, and in my case in particular, I had to look at what I've done so far and realize it wasn't that bad. You know, I had a lot that I've done before I got to that particular point in time where I started to spiral downwards. And now I have a lot more to look forward to. So you really have to take stock, like how you say, take stock and realize that, hey, you're not as bad as what you think you are. You are a lot better than what you think you are.
Exactly. My experience, I had made a lot of money, I'd invested it and lost it, and it put me into a particular space, a spiral, like you said. But the transition that came for me, or where the penny dropped, was when I had the opportunity to go to Ghana. And I was able to go to the enslavement fort on the west coast, called Cape Coast. And it was in that period, that experience exposed me to the fact that what I was going through was nothing in comparison to my ancestors. You know what I mean? It was nothing in comparison to what they went through. I asked the question, said, can you imagine the depression that they had?
Yes.
Chained and shackled.
Yes.
You know, so my depression was self-inflicted, basically. You know what I mean? it wasn't imposed on me where I was powerless. I had the power to change my situation, right?
Yes.
So whereas they didn't, they were powerless. They couldn't afford to do. They couldn't really, because they were shackled and chained. And from that episode, I realized why men, especially black men in particular, like I said, that extra layer that we carry with us also began then because of our inability to protect our families and our girlfriends.
Oh yes. And
that's something we carry to this day. Where we get situations, we don't talk about it, right? Back then, you couldn't afford to cry in front of the enslaver, because then you'd be seen as weak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even though you see a girlfriend or your wife or your children being taken away from you, you couldn't protect them either because you're shackled and chained. Yes. So can you imagine somebody going through that experience? You know what I mean? Can you imagine the depression that they've experienced then? You know, they want to kill somebody. They want to kill an enslaver. You can't. You want to cry, but you can't. You know? They internalize that. So for us, like I said, as African men in the West or in the diaspora, we have carried that trait, I believe, to this day. Why whenever we get into a situation of stress, we tend to close off because of carrying that history of not being able to open up at the time when we're trying to protect ourselves, you know. So yeah, man. So that's how deep it can go, and that's how deep I look at it. You know what I mean, in that regard, and I was carrying that to this day. But like yourself, you had a revelation, and you were able to get yourself turned around and move forward.
Yeah, I realized it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was, man. And I thank God that I have opportunities now where I can express myself.
That's right.
You want to hear something, man? If it wasn't for communication, like you say, things are bottled up inside. These mediums, like this podcast here, you know, things like what you do with writing and making sure you express yourself, they go a long way, you know. And
totally.
Part of it, yeah.
Totally.
And like articulate your feelings.
Exactly. And like you, when I started to compare what I was going through to what our ancestors went through, I said, well, I mean, I don't have the challenges. And like you, I was able to then say, you know what? I said, yeah. And then I found ways of enabling me to heal, like you said, writing, reading, being patient, meditating, you know what I mean? Having good friends around me, all that kind of stuff. And I reading and watching the right things and absorbing those things and putting them into perspective. And just dusting myself off and picking myself up and just moving forward again, you know? And since then, since I had that revelation at that time, things have been so wonderful, you know? Things have been wonderful.
So speaking of that, what are some of the ways men could continue digging themselves out of depression, though? I mean, we talked about communicating, we talked about writing, we talked about reading. But what can men do to help dig themselves out of this pit of depression they may find themselves in?
Find other men. Find other men who they can reason with. Because one of the things I always say, and this is something I had learned earlier on when I was doing my talks, is that I remember having a talk and a sister came up to me, a black woman came up to me and she said, she sees her partner in terms of the journey that I was going through. And she tries to, get him to open up. And I said, so she's asking me the same question that you asked. What should she do? And I said, leave him. Leave him. What you can do is try to find other men he can relate to enable him to get out from where he is. Because when we have what again, like I said, I throw it back to when our ancestors were taken. The men at that time were unable to express themselves because they couldn't be seen to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? But they were able to be in that circle that they're probably in, and if they're talking the same language, they'll be able to talk to each other. So I equated to that, and I said, listen, you can find someone who's grounded, knowledgeable, probably wise, someone who you feel there's a positive vibration coming from them, then try to get them to help. And I've had that actually. I've had cold calls where people have actually referred people onto me for that sort of reason, So that's what I would say. That in addition to the writing, in addition to, the studying of books, in addition to watching uplifting YouTube videos, those things are an additional bonus. The ability to express, it's always good to express with other men, always good to express with other men who are grounded and have the wisdom, and how to help to heal.
I agree, man. Find another man who are in like position or a lot better, I would say, who could help to get you out of this that dark space that you're in. And that's so important, finding good men.
Yes, it is. Yes, there are many out there, there are many out there doing some great works, many out there. And I've had the fortune of meeting quite a lot, so I'm blessed in that sense.
Well, why do you think most men prefer to be loners, though? I mean, why is that within us, particularly black men? We prefer to be loners to a large degree. Why do you think that's so? You think that society built us that way? You think it's that we just don't trust one another?
It's societal. It's a societal thing, because remember, again, a lot of what we're going through is not new. So it's something that we have been embedded in regard to and indoctrinated in not to trust each other. You know what I mean? That's what it stems from the fact that, for example, like I said, you talk about plantations, and you have the house slave and you have the field slave. So you create these divisions, and you see somebody else better off than yourself, and you've been informed or ill-informed of that. So you're gripped on with all this misinformation. So you end up not liking yourself, basically. You're hating yourself because of what you're being fed. So I think a lot of what has transpired in regards to black men, men relationship in that regard, and black men in particular, is the fact that we don't see ourselves in the other person, and that is caused by misinformation of what somebody else has put into us in that regard. Creating this divide, creating this perception of division, and people believe it, buy into it.
They do.
Manifested.
Speaking of misinformation, though, I mean, you said you had a trip to Ghana, to the motherland. So tell me, how was that? Because people have this impression that, Africa is just this one country, right? But it's not. There are several countries inside Africa, right? But also, they have this impression that Africa is filled with people who wear grass skirts, who swing from trees, and live in huts. That's not the case, right?
Well, again, that's misinformation. But Africa is very developed. Like I said, I was fortunate enough to get to Ghana, and I need to go back at that part of the time in my journey. And Ghana is the only one I've been to so far, but I would really love to go across the entire continent. I said to anyone, if you want to have an experience, especially if you're in the West, as a black person or African, going to the motherland is a must. I said that to anyone, because it's a way of returning. Because remember, we were stolen from the motherland, taken to other countries, taken to the West, and the only way I think that we'll be able to get to find ourselves is by having that part of the jigsaw. Because it's the most important part of the jigsaw puzzle that we reconnect ourselves. I think that because so like I said, again, misinformation of what other people want us to think of ourselves. You know what I mean? So and these same people are the same ones who will go and invest, they will go and buy land, and they're the ones who will do, because they see the richness and the value after telling us there's no value. So I said to anyone that, so like I said again, especially in the Caribbean, you must have that pilgrimage before anything else. Have that pilgrimage to the motherland, wherever you feel you have an affinity to, Nigeria, Ghana, Gambia, Kenya, wherever it is, where you feel a vibe. Or if you want to travel the entire continent, fine.
Did you see your cousins?
Exactly.
Your cousins?
I had an instance where I was coming out to the airport. Me and the girlfriend who took me there, and I had a bag on a trolley, and the bag dropped off the trolley, and a Ghanaian brother passing and said, "Start speaking to me in tree." And I mean, no, I don't know nothing but tree. I didn't know nothing. I don't feel so I looked at him and said, "Boy, Reggie, I don't understand you know, Reggie. So I don't understand." Where you from? And I said, I'm from Jamaica. It's man, welcome home, man. You look like some people from somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must have been a real moment, man.
Yeah, man. It's just, you look like you come from some hill and gully somewhere, someplace. And I said, and I had to laugh, and I said, look at that. You know what I mean? That's the man look at me and immediately tell me where my features come from.
Wow.
So, yeah. So and that was that kind of experience. I tell you, that kind of experience will change your life forever. Change my life.
Yeah, I like the experience. That did you ever have a chance to go back into your ancestry and see where your grandparents?
No, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. That's so for me. That's the next step. Because like I've been to Ghana, I've been to Cape Coast, experienced that. But for me, the next step is to retrace it even further. You know. So yeah, but that experience you'll never forget. That experience you'll always remember, and that experience actually changed my life. Really changed my life. You know.
Yeah. Do that, man. Do that because that should be interesting, man.
Yeah, man, it will be. It will be. It will be. No, man, it's something that I will do. You know, it's something I will do, and it's something I want to do because I want to know. You know, I really want to know, and I want to write about it too.
Oh, yeah, please do. So, how was your reception in Africa? I mean, I've heard different stories of people. They went back to Africa. They were treated like they were the slave ancestors that are the descendants of slaves, and they weren't really received properly. How were you received in Ghana?
Yeah, like I said, like the example I gave came up the plane when I came walking through the passageway. Everywhere we went, we were welcome. We were welcomed. You know what I mean? We were welcome. We were made to feel, like I said, we were made to feel like we're home. And even when we went to Cape Coast, and we're going through, and the gate of no return or the door of no return, you realize that then you go through the door and you come back. So you've come back, and you're welcome. I've had welcome. There was nothing negative in regards to my experience or anyone saying this or anyone saying that. We are welcomed. And what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is that the Caribbean is moving closer to be closer to the motherland, to Africa. And there was a summit that was held. It wasn't last year. It was the year before, I think it was. And it was the African Union Caribbean Summit. And that was a summit of the first time it's ever happened, where the Caribbean countries and African countries were in one place to talk about trade, to talk about this, and talk about
I was held in Barbados, I think.
Yes, exactly. So that's happening. Yeah, it was last year. It was so that is happening. You know what I mean? There's other things happening where you see a lot of Jamaican artists, a lot of Jamaicans in particular, head to the motherland and to be revered in terms of music and so on. So the closeness is becoming more and more apparent, even in the music, Afrobeats and dance. It's so there's a fusion taking place, which is a great thing. And I remember when I was in the motherland, and I remember going down to the Bali beach, and I'm on the beach, and I felt this breeze, and I said, I feel this renaissance coming. I said, there's a renaissance of African people coming. You know, and it seems like it's starting to pay off. It's starting to happen now. So, yeah, man. So for me, it's a wonderful experience. I can't say I can't tell nobody now. I had a great time. Aside from being protective on the mosquito bites and all that, because mosquito the boat.
How long did you stay for?
I was there for about 3 weeks.
3 weeks? Wow. Did you go on any kind of safari? Did you see the wild animals?
No, I didn't.
Wow. I mean, you missed it. Oh my goodness. Why not?
Yeah, no, because I stayed because I went with a girlfriend of mine, and she knew it better than because she's been there a number of times. So we basically stayed in and about Accra, enjoying Accra, and enjoying, like I said, going on to Cape Coast, going down to Macaulay Market and all that kind of stuff. So it was, that's what we did, explore Accra,
Okay. If I were to go, that would be the first thing I'd do. I'd go and see like the wild animals, going like on safari, going to the bush, into the jungle. I'd see the wild animals, man.
It's monkey at the town. It's a monkey at the town. But no, man, like I said, there's a lot more to do there. There's a lot more to do in terms of discovery for myself. And that journey continues.
But you say you want to write. You want to write something on the motherland soon, right?
Yeah, man. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a novel at the moment, but the novel is based in Jamaica. It's based on an African, how do I call it, warrior who was enslaved in Jamaica. So and he became pretty well known in this. It's called Three Finger Jack. He was an escaped slave, enslaved man, and he came back and attacked plantations and kill off white people and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
so I'm creating
That's happened before.
creating a novel of based on him.
Okay.
But no man, there's a lot more writing to come in regards to our stories.
Okay. So what other projects do you have on tap, Kwame? What else do you have going?
Well, that's one. I've got what else? I'm working on a romance novel based in Jamaica again. I'm working on another action thriller based in Jamaica and well across the diaspora because it's some traveling. I've finished off a sci-fi, which is out. I finished off another action thriller, which is across the diaspora again. It's called the Eradication Conspiracy.
The Eradication Conspiracy.
Yeah,
Wow.
and that
What's
one.
that about? That sounds interesting.
Well, it's a premise. It's just, again, obviously, it's a fictionalized, and it's based on the fact that there's a conspiracy to kill black people. You know what I mean? In terms of
wow.
Yeah. So let's start with the leaders. So, for example, I've created a timeline where it started with leaders like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, Prince. So there's a timeline, right, which shows that these famous people are being killed, as well as going down to what's her name, Sandra Bland. So it comes down to that level. So to show that there's a conspiracy to kill off our leaders, so to speak. But within that, there's a story of an extreme black guy, African guy, who's an extreme sportsman who so happens to stumble upon this conspiracy, and he has to try and stop it.
That sounds interesting, Kwame. I want to read that, man. That sounds like
it's on Kindle actually. I forgot that I had posted it on Amazon. So
it's Amazon. Okay.
Yeah. It's called Eradication.
I'll pick up a copy.
Yeah. It's called Eradication Conspiracy, and the sci-fi is called the City Killing, City Killing, and that again, that's Afrofuturism. You know what I mean? Again,
like the Black Panther.
No, not like the Black Panther. It's more of a modern day sci-fi. It's not like Marvel and Black Panther. It comes more of how can I say it? Come across like a Blade Runner. That kind of
Blade Runner. Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like a Blade Runner scenario. You know what I mean? So that one is also out on Kindle. So but there's more projects in it, and I'm working on, like I said, a James Bond-ish. I don't like to use that word, but that's the only way I can describe it. Another action thriller that I'm working on. So there's quite a bit going on.
Okay, got a lot of stuff going on, Kwame. That's good, man. That's good. You got a lot of stuff going on, Kwame. You're a rich man.
And I'm also running the workshops. I do. Like I said, I'm a ghostwriter, so I write for other people, and I also mentor. I help other people to write their own stories. So I do have I've got an upcoming workshop, a virtual workshop for men, really. But if anyone else is interested in terms of my one-on-ones, then I offer that also.
So when's that going to be held?
That's going to start in May. That starts in May.
Right. Okay.
So people can contact me in regards to that. And as you've seen, I've been shortlisted for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, so that's going to come out in May.
Really? Okay, good, man.
Yeah. So I've been shortlisted. Good. Yeah. So a lot of good things happening.
Yeah, man. That's good for you, man. The Commonwealth Short, that's pretty big, man.
So I've been told.
First time you've been short. This is the first time you attempted the Commonwealth Short Story.
No, I've entered about. This is the 5th time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I've actually been. And the funny thing is, and the story around that is that I entered about 4 times when I was in the UK. And the minute I returned home and I entered it, I've been shortlisted. So like I was saying to you about freedom. In terms so for me, in terms of being a creative, I found the freedom that enabled me to raise my writing to a higher level, whereas I couldn't find it in the UK. So I'm pretty proud of that. And the announcement will be made on May the 17th.
May 17th, you say, right?
Yeah, that's the announcement will be made on that day.
Okay. You keep mentioning the word freedom. How important is that for you, man? The word freedom.
It has to, because I'm a writer. I'm a free thinker. You know what I mean? And I need the space in order to do so. The UK is, and
when you say free thinker now, what do you mean by free thinker?
In order to create, in order for me to create, and I call the creative, in order for me to create, I need a space. I need to know that I can, like I said to you before, I can walk outside, stand in the sun, and be inspired. I can't do that in the UK because one, there's no sun most of the time, and it's raining, and I have to be inside because it's either cold or wet. Okay. So I can go to the hills, I can go to a river, chill out on a beach. I'm being inspired. That's what I mean by being free. I can be anywhere, see my people, and I'm free. You know what I mean? I can watch how people say, that's a character who could do. I'm free. You understand? So it's a connection with the environment. It's almost like some people say it's a connection with the earth. And for me, Jamaica is my earth. So it's connecting with what that enables me to become and what I can create. Gotcha. Whereas there's a connection. Whereas in the UK, there's no connection, if that makes sense. There's no connection in terms of the environment. There's no connection with the people. There's kind of no connection for me to express as much as I want to express.
It's not your culture. It's not your culture at all. No.
Whereas I'm home, and like I said to you, for me, the manifestation is when I can write one piece and it becomes shortlisted for a major competition. Yes. And it made me realize, oh, yeah, of course this is the place I need to be, because I've seen the result.
Yeah, frees your spirit.
Yeah, exactly. So my spirit is free. My spirit is free to create. My spirit is free to express. My spirit is free to enable to manifest. You know what I mean? Yeah. So So that's what I say. When I say free, that's what I mean. My mind is completely free.
So being back in Jamaica is being therapeutic for you, man. That's good.
It has been therapeutic, but I would say it's therapeutic because it's something I was going to do. You know, it's not as if I was going to do it. It's not as if I decided, no, I need to go. No, it was always, the calling was always there. You understand? So it's not even from me. The calling was always there to show me, say, listen, you need to be back here if you want to do certain things.
Yes.
And so I didn't deny that.
Yes.
Understand? So for me, it was making sure that I got back. You know, I know the manifestation. So like I said, it was written. It's almost like it was written. I said, you need to be here. Understand? And I'm now here. I know I'm seeing the results of being here.
Gotcha. Any hardships you experienced being back in Jamaica compared to UK? Because I know you can't get your hands on a lot of stuff that you would normally want to get your hands on, right?
That's a different environment, just like that. You know what I mean? Gotcha. You know what I mean? It's, like I said to you, for me, the ultimate is being free. Everything else is just it is what it is. I don't. It doesn't worry me. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't worry me. I'm where I'm supposed to be, and I'm fine with that. Even if we don't have the light and the water, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. All right. Those things don't worry me. Those things don't worry me.
I got you, man. Freedom is the word. Freedom is the word.
Man, freedom is the truth, and I am truly free. I am truly free. Like I said, the manifestations of what I've seen, being on the back of being free. You know what I mean? I can't argue. I am free.
Yeah. It's funny how we met. We met through a mutual friend of yours who's still in the UK, right? Esther Austin.
That's right. Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
She is.
She's phenomenal work.
Yeah, man. She did phenomenal work. She's her magazines are doing very well. She's really now, when I mean the go-to person for, you know, legends and pioneers in the go back in the day, artists. She's the person, the go-to person. She's been doing very well. She's featured. Oh man, she's featured? Odyssey, The Emotions, 3 Degrees, Sister Sledge, the Manhattans.
Yeah.
I mean, quite a number of people she's featured, and she's doing very, very well. Doing very well.
She loves her golden oldies, boy.
Yeah, she's doing very well. Very proud of her. Very proud of her. She's taking the magazine that she has to where it is now, and where it's going to be, because it's moving on to bigger things.
Yeah. She's making progress with that, isn't she?
Yeah, man. So, yeah, she hasn't. And as you know, one thing when you're on this creative journey, you don't stop. You don't give up. You have to continue. You have to keep moving.
There's always new ideas. There's always something else to create, you know. There's always something else. Always another avenue you can take, you know.
Exactly. And as a creative, you don't stop. You have to persist. The more you persist, then that's when the results will show, you know. But she did phenomenal work. She's doing great. She's great. She's great.
Gotcha. Okay, man.
Yeah,
so, man, we've been chatting for a while, man. You haven't told me anything about yourself in particular. I mean, what about you? What about Kwame? What does Kwame do in his off time?
Well, lots of the time I do write. Like I said, I'm writing for the people. So and I help other people write. So a lot of my time is taken up in book mentoring. So for example, I'm working with a young man who is about 15 years old who wants to put a poetry book together. You understand? So a lot of my time is doing that kind of stuff. In my off times, I do go to a lot of events, though.
Mm.
I do fit that in. So, for example, the past weekend, I was on a number of events, you know. So I do that, and I do love traveling, which I've been back here yet. I haven't started to do that as yet, because I want to settle in, make sure that I got things moving, and then I'll start doing my traveling again.
Okay.
But like I said, remember, the Caribbean, the chill place. It's a spontaneous place.
Yeah.
So you do things that come spontaneously. You know what I mean? So right now I'm just chilled. I'm just chilled. I just know that if I need to do something, I need to be somewhere, then I'm gone. But somebody come and look for me, come, let's go. I'm gone. But yeah, that's how my days are.
Gotcha. Just taking it easy and relaxing in Jamaica, man. That's good.
It's not like that. It's not like being in the UK where you say, you go to work, you come home, and then and even then, on the weekends you have something structured that you got to go to, and no, here you just kick back and just take it easy, and whatever happens,
Yeah. Things happen when they happen. I know.
Things happen when they happen, right? You just take it easy and just Yeah, so that's.
I don't know how it is in Jamaica, man, but I know when I came back to the Bahamas, well, actually, when I moved to the UK to go to uni, right, I realized that there's a big difference in the terms of the structure. Like they're much more serious in regard to what they plan to do for you. Whereas you come back to the Bahamas or the Caribbean, it's like you're not sure you're going to get what you actually asked for. You get that experience in Jamaica where a lot of things are arbitrary.
Yeah, man. But then what are you going to do?
Wow.
What are you going to do? You know what I mean? It's interesting because I was on a Zoom call with the BBC recently, and they're kind of down here filming for people who return, younger people returnees, and one of the things that came out was for a lot of people, because a lot of people who never grew up here, so the Black Brits in terms of who they are, so they see the contrast, like you said, in regards to how things operate here and how things operate in Jamaica. But you know something, they would never go back. They accept the environment for what it is, and when you do, it's easier, right? So and to me, it's a mindset thing, the first thing, and for anybody who makes a transition like this, they have to get in the mind that you're going into a completely different environment, a completely different environment where you're not on the move all the time, you're not rushing, you're not under pressure, you're not going to have those stresses. So, for example, in the UK at the moment, from what I understand, inflation is going up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are finding it harder to even go to the supermarket to buy stuff. Food banks are growing in regards to people having access to food. So those kind of stresses, even though Jamaica has its own stresses, but it's not the same. And you can, like I said, you come to an environment like this, and you can lock up in your house if you want. Still good. Like I said to you before, I can jump on a bus. I can go to New Kingston now, jump on a bus to the North Coast, hit a beach, and I can chill out for a day.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
That.
Yeah, that's as simple as it is. In the UK, I couldn't do that. I'd have to, if I was going to jump from a bus in London, how much would it cost me to get to the coastline?
Yeah.
I mean, think about the River Thames. River Thames is dirty anyway at the best of times.
Yeah. So who wants to swim in the Thames, man? No one wants to swim in the Thames.
Exactly, because it's disease and nasty.
Yeah.
So you don't have and if you want to go, I'd probably go to Alexandra Park and sit down and if it's a good day, if you're able to get a good day. So so those, for me, it's the simple things. Those simple things. Yeah, man. And I don't like lock up in a house and I look at the four walls, and I know when you come outside it's grey and the people are grey, and no. I like to see my people happy and smiling. And funny thing is, I'm going to share something with you, and which is interesting. Sunday gone was my birthday, right?
Okay. Happy birthday, Kwame.
Thank you, man. So I was taking an Uber to go to an event. So I'm talking to the driver. So the main driver, he's been to my house before and he knows me. So we're talking, and I said, I said, I'm part of Coming Ones and so short story. And I said, today my birthday, I said, yeah, man. I said, happy birthday, man. So, and you know something? It's when he dropped me off, when I'm ready to pay him, you know what he said to me?
What he said?
He said, no, man, don't pay me, man. You're good. It's your birthday.
Yeah.
Pay it forward.
Yeah.
I would never, ever get that in London.
Yeah, no, really? What?
Guaranteed. No taxi driver. He would probably tell me happy birthday, but still want his money.
Of course.
Exactly. So that those are the things for me are what make the difference for me.
Yes.
That simple act. That simple act. You know what I mean? I said, I was insisting. I said, no, man, I have to pay you doing your work. I said, no, man, just go and pay it forward. That's what they said to me. And that is what I'm talking about. Those are the things that for me are important more than the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And money and the trappings and the big city.
Yeah, man. Yeah,
That warmth.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? I went to where was I again? I was into KFC, and somebody dropped their license outside, right? And somebody found it outside, coming to KFC, And I said, I must give it to the security guard. I said, security, I want to drop a license. And the security guard, I said, the man over there by the counter. And call them my name and the man get my license. So like I said, those small acts to me are the big things.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying to myself, would I ever see that in the UK where somebody would have come in and give the security guard a license, and the security guard would open up his mouth and say to the man there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like I said, so those little acts for me are what important, are what are more important than the other stuff.
Yeah. If that was UK, they were taking that license, they would have stolen your identity.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. So like I said, so those are the things for me, Yuri, that are important, more important than the stuff, the other stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Kwame, that's the end of our ride here. Thank you for joining me on the Live Vibe podcast, man. Any final thoughts, Job?
Well, no, thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, like I said, anyone who wants to contact me, I'm on info@authority, AUTHORITY, brand, BRAND, building, BUILDING.com. So the info@authoritybrandbuilding.com. Or they can reach out to me on my own personal email, which is Kwame, KWAME, MA McPherson, MCPHERSON @gmail.com.
@gmail.com.
Yeah, Kwame MA McPherson @gmail.com. So
thank you so much, Kwame, for joining me on the Live Vibe podcast. I really appreciate it, man. You're really an enlightening person to talk to, man. Really inspiring. Yeah, you're really enlightening, man.
Thank you.
Another young man talk about, I heard another man talk about depression and how you build yourself up and how you get engaged with life and how you appreciate the small things in life. It's really illuminating, man. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much, Kwame.
No, man. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
So this ends another Line Vibe podcast. I'm your host, Yori Camp. And if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our YouTube page. That's Line Vibe on YouTube, or our Facebook page, Line Vibe, and you can click like on our Facebook page and click like on this video, and it really helps us out a lot. It really helps us to build our community and share our content with as much persons as possible. So please subscribe to us on YouTube or Facebook. We're looking forward to seeing you again. This is Yori Camp. Goodbye.